A racist judge humiliates a decorated black tomb guard in federal court, unaware of his military justice background. When tensions explode and a gavel flies, Sergeant Marcus Wilson's hidden expertise flips the power dynamic, leaving justice itself on trial. Dawn breaks over Arlington National Cemetery, casting long shadows across endless rows of white headstones. The air feels sacred here, heavy with sacrifice and honor. The tomb of the unknown soldier stands as a silent sentinel, its pristine marble gleaming in the first light of day. A small crowd gathers, veterans with pinned medals, tourists with reverent expressions, and a young boy in a veteran's cap, eyes wide with wonder. At the center of it all is Sergeant First Class Marcus Wilson, a tomb guard moving with mechanical precision. 21 steps south, a crisp turn with his rifle, a 21-second pause to honor the fallen, then 21 steps north. His boots shine like black mirrors, his white gloves spotless, his uniform a testament to discipline and dedication. Marcus is 45, tall and commanding with deep brown skin that has weathered desert suns and mountain frosts. His face is a map of quiet strength, high cheekbones, watchful eyes that miss nothing, and a thin scar above his left eyebrow that speaks of battles fought far from home. His posture is perfect, shoulders squared, chin level, every movement calculated and precise. The tomb guard has maintained this vigil 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, since 1937, through blizzards, hurricanes, and scorching heat. The badge Marcus wears on his uniform is one of the rarest in the military. Fewer than 700 soldiers have earned it since its creation. For those who know, it speaks volumes about his character and commitment. Among the onlookers stands an elderly black veteran, his Vietnam service cap adorned with pins and ribbons. He watches Marcus with undisguised pride, leaning on his cane as he explains to his grandson in hushed tones, "That's what excellence looks like, boy. Those guards are the best of the best." A young woman snaps photos, careful to stay behind the boundary line. "The precision is incredible," she whispers to her friend. "I read that they train for months just to perfect that walk." What the crowd doesn't know is that today, Marcus is stepping off the mat and into a federal courthouse just miles away. His testimony in a vandalism case, punks defacing a veterans memorial near Arlington, should be straightforward. Confirm the facts, then return to his post. But life rarely follows the script, especially for a black man who's dedicated his life to serving a country that hasn't always served him equally. Today, Marcus will face a battle no training could prepare him for, a battle of words, wills, and honor in a place where power wears a different uniform. As the morning ritual concludes and another guard takes his place, Marcus checks his watch, a weathered timepiece that belonged to his father. He has exactly 1 hour before his court appearance. Enough time to change into his dress blues and make the journey from this sacred ground to the halls of justice. What awaits him there will test everything he stands for, and reveal everything he is. Marcus Wilson grew up in a close-knit black community in Greenwood, Mississippi, where history ran deep and memories were long. His neighborhood was modest but proud, with small neat houses and front porches where elders told stories as twilight fell. His father, James Wilson, ran the local auto repair shop, hands perpetually stained with grease and calloused from hard work. A Gulf War veteran who served with the 24th Infantry Division, James carried himself with quiet dignity and taught his son that excellence was the best answer to prejudice. "They'll set the bar higher for you," he'd say, adjusting a carburetor without looking up. "So you jump higher." Simple as that. Marcus's mother, Elaine, taught history at the local high school, filling their home with books and insisting that her son know not just American history, but the often overlooked contributions of black soldiers in every American conflict. Their living room wall held 2 treasured photographs, James in his desert fatigues during Operation Desert Storm, and a faded picture of Marcus's grandfather in his World War II uniform, one of the storied Buffalo Soldiers. "Your blood has served this country since before it wanted to acknowledge you," Elaine would tell him. "Remember that. It's not just your heritage, it's your power." When Marcus was 10, he watched the Twin Towers fall on their small television set. As the country reeled, he noticed how crisis stripped away pretense, how service transcended division. That day, something crystallized in his young mind, a determination to serve, to be part of something larger than himself. At 18, against his mother's quiet concerns and with his father's solemn blessing, Marcus enlisted in the army. He excelled in training, his natural discipline and quick mind marking him for leadership. By 23, he was a staff sergeant leading a platoon in Iraq, navigating the dangerous streets of Fallujah during some of the conflict's most intense fighting. It was there, during an ambush in a narrow alley, that Marcus earned his Bronze Star with valor. When his unit was pinned down by insurgent fire, he coordinated a tactical retreat while carrying his wounded radio operator across 200 meters of exposed ground. The mission succeeded, but the cost was high. His best friend, Specialist David Reynolds, died in his arms, blood soaking into the desert sand. "Don't let them forget us," David had whispered, pressing his dog tags into Marcus's hand. "Promise me." Marcus returned from Iraq with a Purple Heart, a scar above his eyebrow from shrapnel, and a promise to keep. The transition back to civilian life wasn't easy. The hypervigilance, the nightmares, the subtle and not-so-subtle prejudices that followed a black man in uniform. Some civilians thanked him for his service while clutching their bags tighter as he passed, others questioned if he'd really been in combat or assumed he'd been a cook or driver rather than a combat leader. Rather than let it embitter him, Marcus channeled his energy into education. Using the GI Bill, he pursued a law degree at night while continuing his military service, specializing in military justice. He worked as a paralegal in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, building expertise in the very laws that govern military conduct and honor. At 40, with 22 years of service behind him, Marcus applied for what he considered the ultimate honor, a position with the Tomb Guard, the elite unit that maintains the perpetual watch over the tomb of the unknown soldier. The selection process was grueling. Only the top tier of soldiers are even considered, and fewer than 20% of those make it through training. For 5 years now, Marcus has served as a sentinel, guarding the unknowns with every fiber of his being. It's not just duty, it's his promise to David, to his father, to every soldier who never came home. Marcus's military career reads like a testament to perseverance. After his tours in Iraq, he could have taken a safer path, but the promise he made to David pushed him forward. The Army recognized his potential and sponsored his continued education. While maintaining his active duty status, Marcus attended law school at night, often studying by flashlight during training exercises or deployments. His fellow soldiers nicknamed him the Professor, for the law books always tucked into his rucksack. When others collapsed into sleep after grueling marches, Marcus would prop himself against his pack, reading case law by headlamp. His commanding officers noted his exceptional ability to navigate both military protocol and legal complexities, a rare combination that made him invaluable during complex operations where rules of engagement were constantly scrutinized. "Wilson doesn't just follow orders," one evaluation read. "He understands why they exist and how to execute them within legal and ethical boundaries." In Iraq, Marcus had seen firsthand how critical proper legal understanding was in combat zones. During his second tour, he prevented a potential war crime when a frustrated lieutenant wanted to deny medical care to captured insurgents. Marcus calmly cited the Geneva Conventions and military code, defusing the situation while maintaining unit cohesion. That incident convinced him that military justice wasn't just about punishment, it was about protecting the very values soldiers fought to defend. His law degree specialized in military justice, with additional focus on international humanitarian law. He maintained his legal credentials even as he rose through the ranks, becoming a resource for younger soldiers navigating the complex intersection of combat and law. When Marcus applied for the Tomb Guard, many questioned his decision. At 40, he was older than most applicants, and his legal background seemed at odds with the ceremonial role. But Marcus saw it differently. To him, guarding the tomb was the ultimate expression of justice, ensuring that those who gave everything would never be forgotten or dishonored. The training was punishing. Tomb guards must memorize 17 pages of history verbatim, master the precise 21-step ritual, and achieve perfection in uniform preparation. A single loose thread or scuff mark means failure. For months, Marcus practiced the measured cadence of the walk, polished his shoes until they reflected like glass, and pressed his uniform to razor-sharp perfection. Your uniform inspection begins 2 hours before you even arrive, the head trainer told the candidates. If you're thinking about it, you're already late. Of the 23 soldiers who began training with Marcus, only 4 completed it. When he received his Tomb Guard identification badge, the second rarest badge in the Army after the astronaut badge, Marcus thought of David, of his father, of his grandfather. 3 generations of service culminating in this sacred duty. Now, 5 years into his service as a sentinel, Marcus has become a fixture at Arlington. Visitors often remark on his perfect composure, unaware of the combat veteran and legal mind behind the disciplined exterior. To most, he is simply the guardian, a living symbol of America's commitment to honor its fallen. But today, in a courtroom across the Potomac, both the warrior and the scholar within him will be called to stand. The United States District Court for the District of Columbia stands as a monument to justice, all marble columns, polished wood, and solemn authority. Inside Courtroom 4, the morning docket is underway, the space humming with the controlled chaos of the legal system. Attorneys shuffle papers, clerks whisper instructions, and spectators shift in the hard wooden pews. Marcus Wilson enters precisely 30 minutes before his scheduled testimony, his dress blues immaculate, each medal and ribbon in exact alignment. The uniform draws attention immediately. The dark blue fabric with its scarlet trim and gleaming buttons stands in stark contrast to the muted grays and navies of the legal professionals. Several heads turn, some with respect, others with curiosity, a few with subtle discomfort at this military presence in civilian legal space. He takes a seat in the witness waiting area, back straight, hands resting on his knees. A young law clerk does a double take, her eyes lingering on the bronze star and purple heart among his decorations. An older white attorney glances over, then leans to whisper something to his colleague. Marcus notices, he always notices, but his expression remains neutral, a skill honed through years of standing sentinel while tourists gawked and sometimes made ignorant comments. The case itself is straightforward, 3 young men caught spray-painting obscenities on the Korean War Veterans Memorial. Marcus, off-duty and on his morning run, witnessed the vandalism and intervened, detaining one suspect until police arrived. His testimony should take 15 minutes at most, establish what he saw, identify the defendants, confirm the timeline. Then back to Arlington for his afternoon shift. The courtroom clerk, a middle-aged black woman named Denise, approaches with a clipboard. "Sergeant Wilson. You're 4th on the witness list. Should be about 20 minutes. She offers a subtle nod of respect, her eyes briefly acknowledging his medals. "Thank you, ma'am," Marcus responds, his voice quiet but carrying the natural authority of command. A few rows ahead, 2 veterans, one white, one Latino, both in their 60s with VFW caps, notice Marcus and exchange knowing glances. The white veteran gives a small nod which Marcus returns, the subtle acknowledgement between those who've served. The bailiff calls out, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Raymond Kessler." The side door opens, and Judge Kessler strides in, silver-haired, wire-rimmed glasses, and a mouth set in what seems to be a permanent frown. As the courtroom stands, Marcus rises with military precision, his movement catching the judge's eye. Something in Kessler's expression shifts, almost imperceptibly. A tightening around the mouth. A narrowing of the eyes. And Marcus Wilson, who has survived ambushes and firefights, feels the first stirring of warning in his gut. Judge Raymond Kessler takes his seat with practiced authority, surveying his domain through narrowed eyes. At 58, he spent 25 years on the federal bench, building a reputation as brilliant but merciless. His legal mind is razor-sharp, his temperament less so. Attorneys who appear before him come over-prepared, knowing his intolerance for even the smallest misstep. "Proceed with the vandalism case," he instructs, voice clipped and impatient. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Thomas Bradley, rises, a competent man in his 40s with a methodical approach. He outlines the case efficiently, 3 defendants, caught defacing a war memorial, multiple witnesses including an off-duty military officer. Throughout the opening statements, Kessler's gaze repeatedly drifts to Marcus, something calculating in his assessment. When the first 3 witnesses testify, a park ranger and 2 tourists, the judge is brisk but professional, moving the proceedings along with minimal commentary. Then the clerk calls, the United States calls Sergeant First Class Marcus Wilson. Marcus approaches the stand with measured steps, the same precise cadence he uses at the tomb. He's sworn in, states his name and rank for the record, and prepares for Bradley's questioning. Sergeant Wilson, please tell the court what you observed on the morning of October 12th, Bradley begins. Marcus testifies clearly, his voice steady and authoritative. He describes his morning run, spotting the 3 defendants with spray cans, their laughter as they defaced the memorial wall, his intervention and citizens' arrest of one while the others fled, later to be apprehended. Bradley is halfway through his questioning when Kessler interrupts. Sergeant Wilson, the judge cuts in, his tone carrying a subtle edge that wasn't present with previous witnesses. Is there some special occasion I'm unaware of? Marcus turns slightly. Your Honor. Kessler gestures at Marcus's uniform. The full dress uniform. Is this a military holiday? No, Your Honor. I'm scheduled for duty at the tomb of the unknown soldier immediately following this testimony. Our uniform is required at all times during duty days. A thin smile crosses Kessler's face. The tomb of the unknown soldier. So you're one of those guards who marches back and forth all day. The courtroom stirs. Bradley shifts uncomfortably. Your Honor, if I may continue with the relevant. In a moment, Counselor. Kessler waves him off, attention fixed on Marcus. Tell me, Sergeant, what exactly qualifies someone to walk in circles at Arlington? Special training in marching? The question carries a dismissive tone that sends a ripple through the gallery. The 2 veterans in VFW caps exchange glances. Marcus maintains his composure, his expression neutral. The tomb guard undergoes extensive training, Your Honor. Candidates must have spotless military records, pass rigorous testing, and demonstrate exceptional discipline. Less than 20% of applicants complete the training. Kessler's eyebrows rise slightly. All that to perform for tourists. Seems like the military has budget to spare. The comment hangs in the air, its disrespect palpable. Bradley attempts to redirect, Your Honor, Sergeant Wilson's testimony regarding the vandalism. Yes, Kessler interrupts again, but his eyes remain on Marcus, something challenging in his gaze. Continue, Counselor. Let's hear what our ceremonial soldier witnessed. The emphasis on ceremonial carries unmistakable condescension. Marcus remains at attention in the witness box, his face impassive, but those who know what to look for might notice the slight tightening of his jaw, the only outward sign that the barb has landed. As Bradley resumes questioning, Kessler's interruptions grow more frequent and pointed. What begins as subtle digs evolves into increasingly overt disrespect, each comment carrying the dual sting of military dismissal and racial undertones. Sergeant Wilson, Kessler interjects after a detailed description of the vandalism, you seem very concerned about this memorial. Don't you think your talents would be better used in actual military operations rather than playing honor guard? Bradley objects, Your Honor, this line of questioning is irrelevant to the witness's testimony. I'll determine what's relevant in my courtroom, Counselor, Kessler snaps. He turns back to Marcus. I'm curious about the allocation of military resources. Especially when we have actual conflicts abroad. Marcus responds evenly, the tomb guard's mission is considered essential, Your Honor. We maintain a 24-hour watch over those who made the ultimate sacrifice, including many who could not be identified. Essential, Kessler repeats, the word dripping with skepticism. Like the essential service of standing still while tourists take photos. The courtroom tenses. A woman in the gallery whispers audibly to her companion. The 2 veterans in VFW caps sit straighter, faces hardening. Permission to explain the significance of the guard, Your Honor. Marcus asks, his voice steady. By all means, Sergeant. Educate us on the vital national security function of ceremonial marching. Kessler's smile doesn't reach his eyes. The tomb represents all unidentified fallen service members, Your Honor. Many of them were black soldiers who served in segregated units and weren't accorded the same honors as their white counterparts in death. Our watch ensures that their sacrifice is never forgotten, regardless of their race or background. Kessler's expression sours at the mention of race. Let's not make this a social justice lecture, Sergeant. Stick to the vandalism you allegedly witnessed. Allegedly? Bradley interjects. Your Honor, Sergeant Wilson's testimony is not in dispute by the defense. Nevertheless, Kessler continues, eyes fixed on Marcus, I find myself questioning the reliability of witnesses who spend their days performing memorized routines. Critical thinking tends to atrophy when one simply follows orders without question. The implication, that Marcus lacks intellectual capacity, hangs in the air. Several spectators shift uncomfortably. Denise, the clerk, glances up from her transcript, her typing momentarily paused. Marcus meets Kessler's gaze directly. Tomb guards are selected partly for their ability to make independent decisions, Your Honor. Our training emphasizes judgment and discretion alongside precision. Is that so? Kessler's voice takes on a mocking tone. And what complex decisions are you making during your performances? Whether to step with the left foot or the right? A few nervous laughs ripple through the courtroom. Bradley stands again, Your Honor, I must object to this treatment of a decorated witness. Noted and overruled, Kessler dismisses without looking at the prosecutor. He leans forward, studying Marcus with undisguised contempt. Those medals on your chest, participation trophies for showing up in uniform. The room goes silent. Marcus's Bronze Star with Valor and Purple Heart gleam under the fluorescent lights, awards earned in blood and sacrifice. The Bronze Star with Valor was awarded for actions in Fallujah, Your Honor, Marcus states, his voice controlled but carrying throughout the silent courtroom. My platoon was ambushed. I coordinated our response while evacuating wounded under enemy fire. The Purple Heart was for shrapnel wounds sustained during that action. For a moment, Kessler seems taken aback, but he quickly recovers. Well, I'm sure it makes for a good story when you're showing off for tourists. The older black veteran in the gallery stands abruptly before his companion pulls him back down, whispering urgently in his ear. Kessler notices the movement and scowls. This is a courtroom, not a military parade ground. Your combat anecdotes, while touching, have no bearing on this vandalism case. He points at Marcus's service cap, which sits perfectly positioned on the witness stand beside him. And that hat, take it off. It's disrespectful to wear headgear in my courtroom. Your Honor, Marcus responds calmly, military protocol requires headgear to be removed indoors, which I've complied with. It's placed beside me as I'm reporting directly to duty after this testimony. Are you lecturing me on protocol in my own courtroom? Kessler's voice rises. I said remove it from my sight entirely. Put it away or hand it to the bailiff. Bradley intervenes, Your Honor, this is highly irregular treatment of a witness. One more word, counselor, and you'll be in contempt. Kessler slams his hand on the bench. He glares at Marcus. Well, Sergeant? Are you going to comply, or does following simple instructions conflict with your marching routine? The courtroom holds its breath as the confrontation reaches a breaking point, the tension palpable between the black soldier standing tall in the witness box and the white judge glowering from the bench. The standoff stretches for several taut seconds. Marcus remains composed, his military bearing unshaken despite the provocation. With deliberate movements, he reaches for his cap. I'll comply with the court's instruction, Your Honor, he says evenly, though I would note for the record that military protocol. I don't need a lecture on protocol from someone who plays soldier for photo ops, Kessler cuts in, his face flushing. The real military is out there fighting wars while you parade around Arlington. The insult lands like a physical blow. Several people in the courtroom gasp. The two veterans in VFW caps half rise from their seats. The older black veterans face a mask of controlled fury. Marcus's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes, a hardening, a focus that combat veterans would recognize. When he speaks, his voice is quieter but somehow fills the room more completely. With respect, Your Honor, every tomb guard has combat experience. We've all served in conflict zones before earning the honor of guarding those who gave everything, including many black soldiers whose contributions were historically minimized. Kessler's face darkens. Are you implying something about this court, Sergeant? I'm simply providing context about the tomb guard's qualifications, as you questioned them. Your qualification to march in circles doesn't interest me, Kessler snaps. And I won't have identity politics dragged into my courtroom. Bradley rises again. Your Honor, this line of "Sit down." Kessler barks, his composure cracking. He turns back to Marcus. You think that uniform and those medals make you special? Make you above the rules of my courtroom? Marcus remains steady. No, Your Honor. I believe in rules and proper procedure, which is why. Then act like it. Kessler's voice rises to a near shout. Stop the sanctimonious posturing. You're a witness in a minor vandalism case, not a constitutional scholar. The courtroom falls silent, shocked by the outburst. Denise's fingers freeze over her keyboard. The bailiff shifts uncomfortably, uncertain whether to intervene. Your Honor, Marcus begins, his tone respectful but firm. I've answered the prosecutor's questions truthfully and complied with your instructions. If there's something specific about my testimony that concerns you, that's when it happens. Kessler's control snaps completely. He grabs his gavel, knuckles white with rage, and hurls it directly at Marcus. The heavy wooden mallet spins through the air toward the witness stand. The courtroom erupts in shocked cries. Bradley jumps to his feet. The bailiff lunges forward. But they're all too slow. Marcus's hand shoots up, catching the gavel mid-flight with the precision of a man whose reflexes have been honed in life-or-death situations. The movement is so fluid, so controlled, it appears almost casual, a combat veteran's instinctive reaction to incoming danger. Complete silence falls as Marcus stands in the witness box, the judge's gavel held firmly in his white-gloved hand. His expression remains composed, but his eyes lock onto Kessler's with an intensity that makes the judge physically recoil. With deliberate care, Marcus places the gavel on the witness stand. Then, with military precision, he removes his service cap from beside him and places it next to the gavel. That, Your Honor, he says, his voice carrying to every corner of the hushed courtroom, was assault on a serving member of the United States Army, a federal offense under Title 18 U.S. Code Section 111. It's also a violation of Judicial Conduct Rule 2.8, requiring decorum in court proceedings. Kessler's face drains of color. His mouth opens, but no words come out. In the gallery, phones have appeared, recording the unprecedented scene. The veterans watch with grim satisfaction. Denise's fingers fly across her keyboard, capturing every word for the official transcript. The power dynamic in the courtroom has shifted completely, and everyone, from the bailiff to the defendants to Judge Kessler himself, knows it. Marcus stands tall in the witness box, his posture unchanged but his presence somehow larger. When he speaks again, his voice carries the weight of both his military authority and legal knowledge. Before I became a tomb guard, Your Honor, I earned a law degree specializing in military justice. I served as a paralegal in the Judge Advocate General's Corps and maintained my legal credentials throughout my service. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Bradley's eyebrows rise in surprise. Even the defendants look up, suddenly interested in this unexpected turn. I recognized your conduct as judicial misconduct from the moment you began targeting my service and using racially coded language to undermine my testimony, Marcus continues, his tone measured but unyielding. Kessler finds his voice, though it wavers. Racially coded? That's absurd. I never mentioned. You questioned my intelligence, suggested I lack critical thinking skills, dismissed my combat experience, and implied I hold my position due to identity politics rather than merit, Marcus counters calmly. These are textbook examples of racial microaggressions in professional settings, well documented in legal literature on judicial bias. The courtroom stirs. A young law student in the back frantically takes notes. Denise's typing never falters, recording every word. Marcus continues, more importantly, throwing a gavel at a witness is assault, regardless of the witness's race or profession. The American Bar Association's Model Code of Judicial Conduct Rule 2.3 explicitly prohibits bias or prejudice based on race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. Your actions today appear to violate multiple ethical standards. Kessler's face flushes again, this time with embarrassment rather than rage. You can't lecture me on judicial conduct in my own courtroom. You're a witness, not an attorney of record. With respect, Your Honor, every citizen has the right to identify violations of law when they occur, especially when they're the target of those violations. As both a soldier and a legal professional, I'm bound by oath to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. The gallery erupts in whispers. Bradley stands, seizing the moment. Your Honor, in light of these extraordinary circumstances, I move for a recess to. Before he can finish, the courtroom doors swing open. A tall black man in an army colonel's uniform strides in, followed by a woman in judicial robes. The colonel speaks first, his voice carrying the natural command of senior rank. Colonel James Donovan, Pentagon Liaison to the Federal Judiciary. I've been observing these proceedings and can corroborate Sergeant Wilson's account of judicial misconduct. The woman in robes steps forward. Chief Judge Laura Bennett, District Court for the District of Columbia. I was in chambers reviewing cases when my clerk alerted me to a disturbance. The courtroom falls silent again. Kessler's shoulders slump visibly as he recognizes his superior. Colonel Donovan addresses the room. Sergeant Wilson is one of our most decorated soldiers and an exemplary tomb guard. His legal background includes graduating with honors from Georgetown Law while on active duty, a fact that would have been in his witness profile had anyone bothered to read it. Chief Judge Bennett turns to Kessler, her expression grave. Judge Kessler, based on what I've witnessed and the reports I've received, I'm relieving you of duties pending a full investigation. This behavior falls far below our court standards. From the gallery, the older black veteran stands, leaning on his cane. Ma'am, if you need additional witnesses, many of us saw everything. I'm retired Master Sergeant Frank Williams, Vietnam, 1969 to 1971. What happened here today was a disgrace to this court and to every veteran who ever served. Other spectators nod in agreement. The two defendants, young men who had been smirking earlier, now sit wide-eyed and somber. Kessler attempts one last defense. This is a misunderstanding. I've served on this bench for 25 years with an impeccable record. Chief Judge Bennett's response is ice cold. Your record will be thoroughly reviewed, Judge Kessler. In the meantime, please surrender your robe to my clerk and report to my chambers immediately. As court security approaches the bench, Kessler's authority evaporates completely. The man who minutes ago wielded his power like a weapon now looks small and defeated. As Kessler is escorted from the courtroom, the atmosphere transforms. What began as an ordinary vandalism case has become a watershed moment that no one present will soon forget. Colonel Donovan approaches Marcus, who stands at attention despite the chaos around them. They exchange a crisp salute before Donovan speaks. At ease, Sergeant. The Pentagon will be filing a formal commendation for your conduct today. You maintain the highest standards of military bearing under extraordinary provocation. Chief Judge Bennett joins them, her expression both concerned and impressed. Sergeant Wilson, on behalf of the federal judiciary, I offer my sincere apologies. Judge Kessler's behavior reflects neither our values nor our standards. Marcus nods respectfully. Thank you, Your Honor. I understand that his actions don't represent the court as a whole. From across the courtroom, Bradley approaches with an extended hand. Sergeant, I had no idea about your legal background. Your restraint was remarkable. As they speak, more people come forward. The court reporter, Denise, approaches with quiet determination. Sergeant Wilson, I've marked this transcript for priority processing. Every word is documented, including Judge Kessler's comments and actions. The two veterans make their way to the front. The white veteran introduces himself first. Master Sergeant Edward Martinez, Gulf War, 1st Marines. What you did today matters, son. You stood tall for all of us. His black companion, Frank Williams, adds with emotion in his voice, when I served, we couldn't even use the same facilities as white soldiers sometimes. Seeing you stand your ground in that uniform, with dignity and knowledge, his voice catches, that's progress worth fighting for. More surprising is when one of the defendants, a young man barely out of his teens, approaches under the bailiff's watchful eye. Sir, he begins awkwardly, I want to change my plea to guilty. What we did was wrong. I didn't understand what that memorial meant until today. His co-defendant nods in agreement, looking chastened. The courtroom doors open again as a group of tomb guards in full-dress blues enters, led by a sergeant major. They form a line at the back of the courtroom, a silent wall of solidarity. The sergeant major catches Marcus's eye and gives a subtle nod that speaks volumes. Chief Judge Bennett observes all this with a thoughtful expression before addressing the room. In light of today's extraordinary circumstances, this court is adjourned until tomorrow. The vandalism case will be reassigned to Judge Monroe. She turns to Marcus. Sergeant Wilson, I understand you have duties to return to. Marcus checks his watch, 15 minutes until his shift at the tomb. Yes, Your Honor. Then you're dismissed with the court's thanks. Your testimony is complete and will be preserved for the rescheduled hearing. As Marcus retrieves his cap from the witness stand, the entire courtroom, from the remaining attorneys to the security officers to the spectators, rises in spontaneous respect. No one speaks, no one needs to. The silent acknowledgement carries more weight than words could express. Marcus places his cap with precision, renders a perfect salute to Colonel Donovan and the other veterans, and walks with measured steps down the center aisle. The tomb guards at the back part to let him through, falling in behind him as he exits. In the space of an hour, a courtroom has transformed from a place of injustice to a forum of reckoning, all because one man stood his ground with dignity, knowledge, and unshakable composure. An hour later, Marcus Wilson stands at his post at the tomb of the unknown soldier, his movements precise, his focus absolute. To tourists watching his measured steps, he appears no different than any other day, the perfect embodiment of military discipline and respect. They don't see how his mind processes the morning's events with each deliberate step. 21 steps south, the memory of Kessler's face as the gavel left his hand. Turn, Colonel Donovan's unexpected appearance. 21 steps north, Chief Judge Bennett's intervention. Turn, the spontaneous standing of the courtroom as he departed. But Marcus compartmentalizes these thoughts, just as he was trained to do in combat. His duty now is to the unknowns, the fallen soldiers he has sworn to honor and protect. In this sacred space, personal concerns must yield to higher purpose. Across the Potomac, the aftermath unfolds rapidly. Denise's transcript reaches the Judicial Conduct Committee by noon. By 2 o'clock, 3 major news outlets have received tips about a federal judge assaulting a black tomb guard in open court. By 4, cell phone videos from the gallery have surfaced online, showing Marcus catching the gavel with calm precision. In a holding room at the courthouse, Judge Kessler sits alone, his judicial robe removed, waiting for his attorney to arrive. 25 years on the bench, possibly ended by a moment of uncontrolled rage. As he reviews his own actions, a pattern emerges that he had never acknowledged. A history of treating minority witnesses with subtle contempt, of dismissing military service as less valuable than his own legal career, of wielding his power without accountability. At the Pentagon, Colonel Donovan files not only a commendation for Marcus but initiates a review of judicial treatment of military witnesses across federal courts. What happened today wasn't isolated, he tells his staff. It's just the first time someone was equipped to stand against it. The vandalism case receives a new judge, the Honorable Michelle Patel, whose father served in Vietnam. When the defendants appear before her the next morning, both plead guilty. The younger one asks permission to address the court. "What we did was disrespectful," he says, voice shaking slightly. "I didn't understand what those memorials mean. After watching Sergeant Wilson yesterday." He pauses, gathering himself. "I want to do community service at Arlington if they'll let me." Judge Patel sentences them to 200 hours of restoration work at veterans' memorials and mandatory history education about the monuments they defaced. At Arlington, as evening approaches and Marcus completes his shift, he finds Frank Williams waiting near the guard quarters, leaning on his cane. "Thought I might find you here, son," the Vietnam veteran says. "Wanted to thank you properly." Marcus offers a respectful nod. "No thanks necessary, sir. I was just doing my duty." Frank shakes his head. "No, you were doing more than duty. You showed that judge, showed everyone, that we're not just props in uniform. That we think, we know the law, we deserve respect." He pauses, emotion briefly overtaking him. "When I came home from Vietnam, they called me names, spat on me. Black and in uniform, double target. Watching you stand tall today, that was for all of us." As they talk, a small group of tourists pauses nearby, a father explaining to his young son about the tomb guards. The boy looks at Marcus with undisguised admiration. "Is that him, Dad? The one from the video?" The father nods. "That's him. Remember what I told you, respect isn't just what you say, it's what you do when nobody's watching. And sometimes, it's standing your ground when everybody is watching." The boy straightens his posture unconsciously, mirroring Marcus's bearing. As Frank departs, he presses something into Marcus's hand, a Vietnam service medal. "Been carrying this for 50 years, he says quietly. "Think it belongs with you now." Marcus begins to protest, but Frank shakes his head. "Some things are passed on. That's how we keep marching forward." Marcus Wilson didn't just guard the tomb that day, he guarded something larger: dignity, truth, and justice. He stood tall not with angry words or physical force, but with knowledge, composure, and unshakable integrity. That's the tomb guard way, and it reflects the highest ideals of military service. His story reminds us that real strength isn't found in a judge's gavel or a powerful position, it's found in standing firm for what's right, even when facing prejudice and abuse of authority. Behind the uniform that Judge Kessler mocked was a man of exceptional courage, intelligence, and principle, a sentinel who showed us what justice truly looks like. The incident sparked important conversations about respect for black service members, whose contributions have too often been minimized throughout American history. From the Buffalo Soldiers to the Tuskegee Airmen to today's military leaders, black Americans have served with distinction while frequently facing the double burden of fighting enemies abroad and prejudice at home. Marcus's story also highlights how military values, discipline, respect, integrity, can serve as a powerful foundation for confronting injustice. By maintaining his composure and responding with knowledge rather than anger, he demonstrated the very best of his training and character. If this story moved you, if it made you think about standing up when facing disrespect or looking beyond uniforms and appearances to see the whole person, here's what we encourage you to do: share it. Visit Arlington National Cemetery if you can, and witness the tomb guard's dedication firsthand. Learn about the contributions of black service members throughout American history. Most importantly, remember that respect isn't optional, it's fundamental to who we are as a society. The next time you see someone in uniform, consider the sacrifices they've made and the challenges they may have faced, both in service and in civilian life. Right now, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of courage and honor, and drop a comment below. Have you ever witnessed someone standing up to disrespect with dignity rather than anger? How did it change your perspective? We read every comment and value your thoughts on respect for our veterans and their sacred duty. This isn't just Marcus's story, it's a reminder of what we can be at our best. Honor it. Share it. Never forget it.